So, what could possibly connect a superstar's world tour, a whole lot of online buzz about, quote, lackluster performances, and a tiny little insect you might never even see? Well, the answer is a pretty surprising revelation that's pulling back the curtain on a really debilitating illness. We're talking about Justin Timberlake and his recent diagnosis with Lyme disease. And just listen to his own words right here. He says living with it is relentlessly debilitating, both mentally and physically. I mean, that really says it all, doesn't it? It's not just some physical thing. He's describing an all-out battle that affects, well, every part of his life. And that's so key to understanding the human side of this. You know, before he came out with this, the public story was totally different. If you were online, you saw fans and critics pointing to what they thought was fatigue, or maybe a lack of energy during his concerts. It's a classic case of seeing the what, but having absolutely no idea about the why. And then came the explanation. He decided to be totally transparent, connecting those struggles people were seeing on stage directly to his private health battle. And when he described massive amount of nerve pain and crazy fatigue, it just suddenly reframed everything people thought they were watching. Okay, so section 1, what is Lyme disease? Timberlake's story really puts a human face on this illness, so let's shift from his personal experience to the bigger public health question. At its absolute core, this is what we're talking about. It's a bacterial infection, it's not a virus, and it's not something you can catch from another person. It all kicks off with a specific type of bacteria, and it's carried by one tiny creature, the tick. All right, here are the fast facts you need to know. The bad guy here is a bacterium called Borrelia burgdorferi. It gets around by hitching a ride on infected ticks. A key point, you can't get it from someone who has it. And geographically, it's a big deal in the US, the UK, and across Asia. But interestingly, it's super unlikely you'd get it in Australia, mainly because their local ticks just don't carry this specific bacteria. Okay, let's move on. Section 2, symptoms, stages, and treatment. So, what does this disease actually do to your body? How does it all unfold? Now, this is the classic textbook sign most of us have probably heard about at some point. It's that very distinctive bullseye or target-shaped rash. It usually pops up about a week or two after the actual tick bite. But here's where it gets tricky, and this is a really critical detail. That bullseye rash, it's common, yeah, but a full 20%, that's 1 in every 5 people who are infected, they never get a rash. Not at all. So the takeaway is pretty clear. No rash doesn't automatically mean no Lyme disease. If it isn't treated, the disease tends to progress in stages. So stage 1 is what we call localized. You get flu-like symptoms, fever, headache, fatigue. If it's not caught then, it can move to stage 2, where the bacteria starts spreading through the body, and that's when you can see heart and neurological issues. Stage 3 is the late stage, and that's where the most severe chronic problems can show up, affecting the joints, the nerves, and even the brain. And those later stage neurological problems, they can be really serious. This is where Timberlake's massive nerve pain really clicks into place. Patients can get anything from facial paralysis, that's known as Bell's palsy, to severe nerve pain, numbness in their arms and legs, and even cognitive problems, that thing people often call brain fog. Okay, so with all of that, there is some really good news here. Lyme is diagnosed with a simple blood test, and when it's caught early, it's usually treated very effectively with a course of antibiotics. For most people who get that early treatment, they make a full and pretty quick recovery. All right, section 3, a wider health concern. So why is Timberlake's story hitting such a nerve? Let's zoom out and look at why this is a health issue that matters way beyond just one celebrity. So Timberlake might be the latest, but he is definitely not alone in this. Other huge stars like Justin Bieber, Avril Lavigne, Bella Hadid, and Shania Twain, they've all come forward and shared their own really difficult journeys with Lyme. And honestly, their stories have done so much to raise public awareness. And this isn't just a celebrity trend. The data really backs this up. According to the CDC, emergency room visits for tick bites in the US this past spring were actually the highest they've been since 2019. This suggests more and more people are coming into contact with ticks, a trend that could be linked to things like climate change, giving us warmer and longer tick seasons. Now, this brings us to a really complex and frankly very sensitive part of this whole conversation, the term chronic Lyme disease. And it's so important to understand both sides of this. On one side, you have the very real lived experience of patients who say they suffer from debilitating symptoms for years, even after treatment. But on the other side, you have the official medical community, which generally views it as a disputed diagnosis, saying there isn't enough hard scientific evidence to define it as its own distinct condition. It is a deeply, deeply contentious issue. So ultimately, when you step back from it, Timberlake's story shines a huge spotlight on a much broader issue. Whether we're talking about Lyme or long COVID or other conditions where the suffering just isn't obvious from the outside, it leaves us all with a really vital question. In a world where these invisible illnesses seem to be on the rise, how can we, as a society, as friends, as family, get better at supporting people whose struggles we can't always see?